the woman my husband never got over. His first love once abandoned him for the rich and powerful school bully. Years later, that first love was going through a messy divorce and needed a lawyer. And my husband, as it happened, was a lawyer. The day he walked back into her life, I chose to surrender. It turns out you can't stop someone who is determined to be a fool. Leo asked me for a divorce 2 weeks after he attended his class reunion. What do you mean? I couldn't believe it. We had been married for 3 years, and our love had always felt strong. Just a few days ago, we had joyfully told both our families that we were trying for a baby. Leo looked exhausted. There were dark circles under his eyes and unshaven stubble on his chin. He couldn't meet my gaze. Lowering his eyes, he said slowly, "It's only temporary. I can't just abandon her." Her. He didn't say her name, but I knew exactly who he meant. The first love who had once thrown him away. Isabella is having a very hard time. Her marriage has fallen apart, but her husband refuses to grant a divorce. It's turning into a legal battle, and she's living all alone. We have a history. Now that she's in trouble, I'm the only one who can help her. I was silent for a moment before asking. She's getting a divorce, and she wants you to be her lawyer. Leo nodded. He continued slowly. Her husband is a powerful man. The case will be incredibly difficult. Our divorcing is just a way to protect you. In the future. He paused, as if wanting to say more, but I cut him off. So I suppose I should thank you for being so considerate. The sarcasm in my tone must have been obvious. Leo's breathing grew heavy, and he didn't speak for a long time. I stood up, grabbing the coat hanging on the back of my chair. Fine. Let's get a divorce. Leo shot to his feet, alarmed. Where are you going? It's so late. From this moment on, we have nothing to do with each other. I left him with those words and walked straight to the door. But as I reached it, I couldn't stop myself. I turned back to look him straight in the eye and asked, "Do you remember how badly you were beaten by her new boyfriend's friends after Isabella dumped you?" Leo, you told me back then. You swore you would make the person who abandoned you pay the price. The door slowly closed, shutting out the sight of Leo's suddenly pale face. It also cut off the rest of my sentence. Leo, are you really so selfless? Or are you just a pathetic fool? Leo and I were practically childhood friends. In school, he was a top student with handsome features. Even though his family was poor, he was still incredibly popular with the girls. I watched him throw every love letter from his desk into the trash, telling me with an annoyed look that he had no interest in dating and found them all bothersome. After that, I kept my distance, carefully hiding my own teenage crush deep in my heart. It wasn't until later that I learned there was an exception. That exception was Isabella. Isabella was beautiful, but it was a dangerous kind of beauty. In an era of uniform bangs and school uniforms, she wore camisoles under her jacket and shimmery lip gloss, exuding a bold and untamed allure. She cornered Leo in the hallway during a break and asked him if he wanted to try something exciting. Leo looked away in disgust, but in the next second, she hooked an arm around his neck and planted a kiss on his lips. Seeing his face flush beet red, Isabella giggled. So thin-skinned. Let's date. At that moment, I was standing at the other end of the hallway, holding the lunchbox Leo's mother had asked me to bring him, watching in a daze as the boy I liked chose someone else. Taking all the meat from his lunchbox was my only act of rebellion. Of course, he didn't care. His heart and soul were completely consumed by Isabella and the thrill of a new romance. I cried my eyes out, then decided to let the feelings go. But sometimes, fate has a cruel way of playing with you. They broke up quickly. Once Isabella got bored, she kicked Leo to the curb without a second thought. She immediately moved on to the new transfer student, the school bully, who would later become her husband. The bully, Damien, came from a wealthy and powerful family. He was rich, arrogant, and could give her everything she wanted. Leo refused to accept that it was over and went to find her several times, until Damien found out. That was the beginning of the targeted bullying against him. His father had passed away early, and he was raised by a single mother. Our family often had to help them out when they were struggling. How could he possibly stand up to someone as powerful as Damien? To this day, I still remember the day we graduated from high school. Everyone else was celebrating wildly, but I was searching the streets in the pouring rain. I finally found Leo in a small alley, barely conscious. His exam admission ticket had been torn to shreds and thrown on the ground. His body was covered in bruises. The moment he saw me, he threw his arms around me, his whole body trembling. They tried to ruin me. Leo gritted out through clenched teeth. I swear, I will make the people who abandoned me pay the price. All I could do was comfort him. Everything will be okay. He suddenly looked up, his eyes fixed on mine. Clara, he said, you're all I have left. I avoided his gaze then, saying softly, I'll wait for you to repeat the year. I didn't want to take advantage of him in his moment of weakness, nor did I want to be anyone's substitute. I was Clara, and I would never settle. I was so cautious. I waited until he retook his exams, got into my university a year later, and pursued me for 3 whole years. He told me. I finally realized what I missed. The sincerity in the young man's eyes was so real that I finally decided to be brave for once. The prince had finally turned around to see the Cinderella behind him. It all felt like the perfect fairy tale ending. 7 years later, the class reunion. A week beforehand, Leo bought me an expensive gown, a handbag, and shoes. A complete, pricey ensemble. I couldn't help but laugh. This is a bit much, isn't it? He simply said. I just want everyone to know how happy my wife is. But in the end, an emergency came up at my company, and I couldn't go. Leo was furious about it. While I was in a meeting, he called me incessantly. When I didn't answer, he started bombarding me with texts. Clara, we're about to start trying for a baby. Can you just quit that stupid job of yours? It's the class reunion today. So many of our old friends will be there. What do you want people to think of me? They'll just think I'm a failure, that I can't even support my own wife. I took a deep breath and replied as quickly as I could. Leo, I am not your trophy. Even though my salary was much lower than his, I loved my job, and no one could take that away from me. A married woman must have her own source of income. Leo's last text was, what's more important, your job or our marriage? I turned off my phone. But late that night, after the meeting ended, I got a call from another classmate. Leo was drunk and had passed out at the restaurant. I panicked. Despite being hungry and exhausted, I immediately called a taxi and rushed over. Leo was indeed very drunk. The moment he saw me, the tall man's eyes reddened, and he collapsed onto me like a giant bear. He mumbled into my neck, honey, I'm here. My heart ached for him. I struggled to help him up. Come on, let's go home. The next moment, he threw up all over my pants and shoes. I winced, and without another moment's hesitation, I managed to shove him into the car, desperate to get home. Just then, a graceful figure emerged from the restaurant. He left his wallet. I took it without looking up, thanked her, and was about to leave when she held the car door open. So you're his wife. The voice was so full of provocation that I instinctively looked up. The neon lights of the street flickered in the distance, casting a colorful glow on the woman. 7 years had passed, and she had become even more alluring. Her long, curly hair cascaded over her shoulders. She wore a V-neck floral dress that revealed a hint of her cleavage, and her makeup was flawless. Her red lips seductive. Isabella, I said, certain my smile was painfully awkward. Long time no see. How could it not be awkward? I caught a glimpse of myself in the rearview mirror. My face, haggard and exhausted after a long day of work, with no makeup, my messy hair tied back, and vomit on my clothes. 7 years. Every time I saw her, I felt like a loser. Thankfully, Leo broke the silence. He seemed to have sobered up a little, or maybe not. He just rested his head on my shoulder and mumbled my name. Honey, Clara, he said. I shouldn't have called you, bothering you at work. Please don't be mad at me. Okay. My heart melted completely. I knew what he was really worried about. When I first decided to be with him, all our friends and relatives were against it, simply because his family was poor. That's why Leo had worked so hard all these years, clawing his way up. He didn't want anyone to think I was suffering by being with him. He wanted me to quit my job, to dress up beautifully for important occasions, all to prove his own success. In those first few years, we really did have it rough. We lived in a damp basement apartment where the ceiling would leak whenever it rained. We'd use a small red plastic basin to catch the drips. In the midst of that dripping sound, we would hold each other. And Leo, his eyes red, would promise me over and over, "Clara, I won't let you regret choosing me." He always felt like he owed me. But that wasn't true. During that time when our pockets were empty, I was happier than most people. He would cook 3 meals for me every day, pick me up from work in the pouring rain, and fight anyone who dared to bully me. He did everything in his power to be good to me. He wasn't a perfect boyfriend, but he was the boy who, if he had $10, would give it all to me without keeping a single coin for himself. He was the boy who loved me. Love can conquer all difficulties. In that moment, in the taxi, as he held me and called me his wife, those words echoed in my mind again. So I looked up and gave Isabella a sincere, dignified smile. "Yes, we've been together for 7 years, and we're very happy." Isabella's expression faltered, a look of dismay on her face. I breathed a sigh of relief. On the way home, I held Leo's hand tightly, but in the end, he still made me lose, utterly and completely. The divorce was definitely happening. I was going to be so benevolent as to help him save Isabella. We hired lawyers to handle the division of assets. The whole process was long and complicated. It was funny, in a way. When we got married, we moved into this house with nothing, starting from scratch, doing everything ourselves. But we were happy then, always dreaming about the future. Now, years later, we were sitting here, facing a long list of assets, all for the purpose of separating. Leo looked weary, smoking a cigarette at the table. After our meeting, I went to the balcony for some fresh air and scrolled through my phone. An old classmate I hadn't spoken to in ages had sent me a video. Her voice message was filled with unease. "I hesitated for a long time about whether to send this to you. I was afraid it would ruin your marriage. But I think there are some things you deserve to know." The video was clearly from the restaurant of the class reunion. In a narrow stairwell, 2 figures were pressed intimately together. Isabella's voice was laced with poison as she asked, "All these years, have you missed me?" Leo's expression was grim as he held her by the shoulders. Isabella asked again, "Me or Clara? Who's better? I'm married to her. That boring woman. Is she really right for you?" Isabella looked up and kissed him brazenly. Leo didn't pull away. After the kiss, Isabella, breathing heavily, pressed herself against his chest like a delicate bird. She said, "Leo, as soon as my divorce is finalized, there is no we." Leo interrupted her then, his voice flat. "I have a responsibility to Clara." With that, he started to walk away. "Leo," Isabella cried out behind him, "I've thought about you every single day for all these years. I regret it. What about you? Hasn't there been a single moment when you thought of me? Stop lying to yourself." Leo stopped in his tracks. After a long moment, amidst Isabella's sobs, he spun around and strode back towards her. His eyes were red, rimmed as he pinned Isabella against the wall and kissed her fiercely. It was a full 15 minutes before I returned to the room. The lawyer had left. The empty space was now occupied only by Leo. "What took you so long?" he asked, organizing the documents on the table. "These are the asset division agreements we just finalized this afternoon." Without even looking at them, I stood in the middle of the room and said slowly, "I want to redraft the agreement. The house, the cars, every single thing from our shared assets. I'm not leaving you a single penny." Leo was stunned. He gave a bitter, disbelieving smile. "Clara, do you really have to make this so ugly? It's been 7 years of our lives. Once this is all over, we can still be together, can't we?" So he did remember it had been 7 years. I leaned forward, my hands on the table, and stared directly into his eyes. "Don't disgust me. Every extra second I have to spend with you makes me want to vomit. 7 years of our lives. Every piece of furniture in this house. We picked it out together, arranged it together. But looking at them now, I felt like even the memories had become hideous." I didn't show Leo the video. I needed to keep one card in my hand. If he tried to obstruct the asset division, I would give the video to my lawyer. As for his cheating, it didn't hurt me as much as I thought it would. Perhaps the moment he asked for a divorce, my feelings for him had already vanished without a trace. I am a person who values dignity. I didn't want to make a scene over a man like him. But in the end, we didn't part on good terms. On the 3rd day after we decided to divorce, Isabella's husband, Damien, showed up with a group of thugs and trashed our home. This heir was named Damien. His family was a well-known local business dynasty. but their methods were notoriously dirty. In the early days, they had crushed many competitors through intimidation and violence. Somehow, he had heard that Leo was determined to get involved in Isabella's affairs. That night, he sent a gang of hooligans to smash our windows. At the time, I was asleep in the master bedroom. Leo had been banished to the guest room. I wasn't moving out until the ownership of the house was settled, to prevent him from transferring assets behind my back. The moment it happened, several shards of glass flew into the room, nearly cutting me. I screamed in terror. Leo rushed in instantly, pulling me into his arms without a second thought, shielding me with his own body in front of the shattered window. The hooligans threw a few red bricks into the house, one of which hit Leo on the head. I trembled, looking down at my hand. It was covered in Leo's blood. The thugs ran off quickly. Leo remained calm throughout, shaking. I called the police. When I looked up, he was getting dressed to go out. Leo. My voice cracked. Where are you going? A flicker of guilt crossed Leo's eyes, but he still said, It's fine. They won't go too far. You go hide in the bathroom. I'll be back soon. In the dead of night, I stood alone in my pajamas before the wide open window, feeling fragile and on the verge of collapse. Leo. I clenched my fists, fighting back my anger and fear, and said, word by word, Are you sure you want to leave me here alone, to face thugs who could come back at any moment? Leo didn't even turn around. He just left me with one sentence. I'm sorry. Isabella needs me more than you do right now. I don't know how I survived those next few hours. The police arrived quickly, dressed in my pajamas. I was much calmer than I expected, answering their questions with composure. When Leo returned, the pitiable Isabella was with him. She looked completely unharmed, her makeup still perfect. She was clinging tightly to Leo's arm and even shot me a provocative smile. Clara. The moment Leo saw me, he immediately shook her off and rushed toward me anxiously. The cut on his head hadn't been treated, and the dried blood on his face made him look both ridiculous and pathetic. Are you okay? His words were cut short by the full force of my hand striking his face. Caught off guard, he stumbled back from the impact. The wound on his head split open, and fresh blood began to seep out. I stared into his eyes, my chest heaving, and said word by word, You are human scum. His face contorted in pain. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Isabella, however, sidled up, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Miss Clara, how could you hit him? Leo was just worried about me. You've misunderstood. With my other hand, I slapped her just as hard. Her smaller frame couldn't take it. The force sent her sprawling to the ground, a large red mark blooming on her pretty face. Leo panicked instantly, shouting, Clara, have you lost your mind? Yes, I've lost my mind. I sneered. Mail me the divorce papers. The sight of you two despicable cheats makes me sick. Even that didn't feel like enough. I crouched down and grabbed a handful of Isabella's hair. Someone else's husband. Is that particularly attractive to you? Is it fun? Isabella's face twisted in pain as I pulled. She sobbed. I didn't. I just asked him for a favor. Really? Of all the lawyers you could find, you just had to seek out your successful ex-boyfriend. Did you really think no one would see through your little act? But it doesn't matter anymore, I said, shoving her away in disgust. I don't care. If you love digging through trash, then by all means, take it. With that, I turned and walked away. Clara, can't you just calm down? Leo tried to stop me, but I kicked him in the knee, causing him to double over in pain. Pathetic fool. I looked down on him. Get out of my way. Now both of you, get the hell out. The divorce papers arrived a few days later. I signed them without hesitation and mailed them back the same day. The day I received my divorce certificate, even the air felt fresher. I took a picture of the certificate and posted it in our old class group chat, pointedly tagging both Isabella and Leo. The caption read, This girl is free again. Congratulations to Miss Isabella on her promotion. Wishing you two a long and happy life together. You're locked in. They had shown me no decency, so I had no reason to save face for them. The group chat exploded. Everyone was asking what was going on. Was Isabella the other woman? Did Leo cheat during the marriage? Isabella sent a flurry of 60-second voice messages. I didn't even have the desire to listen. Buried under a flood of tags. Leo couldn't stay hidden. He could only manage a lame reply. It's not like that. We separated amicably. I clicked the voice note button and said, amicably. My ass. The group chat fell silent. I took a long leave from work and went on a trip to clear my head. How many 7-year periods does one get in a lifetime? I desperately needed a way to dispel the gloom in my heart. It was the off-season for travel, so there were no crowds. The weather was lovely, and I had a wonderful time exploring on my own. In my tour group, there was a young guy who took several photos of me with his camera. He showed them to me. What do you think? The woman in the photos wore a floral vacation style maxi dress, playing with seashells by the shore. The wind had gently swept her long hair back, revealing her beautiful features and a constant smile on her lips. It was still a face without makeup, but I realized how vast the difference was between happiness and unhappiness. I was deeply moved. I looked up and said sincerely, "They're beautiful. Thank you." The young man smiled back, revealing a small canine tooth. "Can I trade this picture for your number?" I looked him over again, smiled, and said, "I'm afraid that might be a bit difficult." "That's okay," he said, his eyes sparkling with determination. "The trip isn't over yet. So, for the rest of the trip." He kept taking pictures of me. The photos were truly stunning. In them, I looked confident and radiant, almost like a different person. I adored them and couldn't stop posting them to my social media feed. While I was enjoying my trip, the divorce proceedings between Isabella and Damien began. On my way back, as soon as I got off the plane, a friend sent me a photo. Outside the courthouse, Damien was dressed in designer clothes, a cigarette dangling from his lips, his expression arrogant and threatening. Leo stood in front of him, shielding Isabella, who looked haggard and terrified, as if a strong gust of wind could blow her over. My friend said, "You should have seen it. Damien was so smug. I heard he even bombarded Leo's law firm with harassing calls, trying to get him fired, and then tried to bribe him off. He's in a really bad spot now." I wasn't particularly interested, but that evening, a comment from Leo appeared under one of my travel photos. He asked, "Who took this for you?" I didn't reply. What business was it of his? When I checked my phone again after dinner, he had deleted the question and left a new comment. "Hope you're having a good time." Later, I received a voice message from him. The first 30 seconds were mostly the sound of the wind, but at the very end, his drunken voice came through. "Honey, the house is so quiet now. I'm so tired. Every single day. No one supports me. No one believes in me. I feel like I'm back where I started." I listened to the message in silence. Then, feeling thoroughly disgusted, I blocked him. I could picture him now, while I was out having fun and healing. He was still living in that house with the smashed window. After the asset division, I had been true to my word and hadn't left him so much as a rug. His career had taken a major hit, likely reminding him of the days just after graduation when no one believed he could make it as a lawyer. No one except me. I had unconditionally believed he could do it. I supported him, encouraged him. When his boss forced him to schmooze clients and he drank until his stomach bled, I was the one who made him hangover soup and took him to the hospital. When no one would give him a chance, I accompanied him as he went door to door, bowing deeply with him, begging for an opportunity. When he won his first case, I spent half a month's salary on a gift to celebrate. There were so many moments like that. It was only later that I finally understood. Never help a boy grow into a man. Now that he had hit rock bottom again, he remembered how good I had been to him. But that couldn't erase the fact that he had abandoned me the moment he became successful. 7 years of my youth, all for nothing. He felt nostalgic. I just felt sick. On the last day of my trip, the young photographer finally got my contact information, just as he'd hoped. But after adding him, I realized he was still a student. His name was Ethan, a graduate student for whom photography was just a hobby. He was adorable when he nervously asked if I had a boyfriend, but I just gently patted his head and said, "You're still too young, kiddo." Ethan looked defiant and told me we'd see about that. I didn't comment. The human heart is the most fickle thing of all. I had learned that lesson from Leo. Unfortunately, he himself didn't seem to understand that principle. The day I returned to the city, I was dragging my luggage off the plane while on a call with a friend. The turn of events had been incredibly dramatic. Isabella had decided not to get divorced after all. It was a long story. But in short, she and Leo had been photographed in an intimate moment. It happened around the time Leo sent me that voice message. The two of them were at a bar, then went home together, and, fueled by alcohol, ended up sleeping together. At some point, Leo seemed to have a moment of clarity and sent me that sad voice message, only to be blocked by me. In any case, Damien's people caught them. With the photos in hand, Damien agreed to the divorce, happy to let the adulterous pair be together. However, he wouldn't give Isabella a single cent. I'm sure that for a moment, a big fool like Leo probably thought about taking responsibility for Isabella. Until Isabella refused. She questioned him in disbelief. If I don't get any money, what did I hire you for? Leo was even more incredulous. You said you were being abused, that you couldn't stand it anymore and just wanted to be free of him. You idiot. Why else would I get a divorce if not for the money? For you, you're still the same naive, pathetic coward you've always been. Isabella's face was twisted with rage, all traces of the pitiful victim gone. From the very beginning, her only goal had been to get a piece of Damien's fortune. Leo was a genuine idiot. He stood frozen for a long time. Just as Isabella was about to storm out, he finally asked in a trembling voice, "Then what does that make me?" "A colossal idiot," I said, without a shred of pity. My friend on the other end of the line burst out laughing. What you can't have always seems better, until you get it and realize how rotten it is. In school, he was wrapped around Isabella's little finger. She'd beckon, and he'd come running with his heart in his hands. Who would have thought that, after all these years, the same drama would play out again? Well, what can you do when someone is determined to be a fool? Still, you should be careful, my friend said over the phone. He knows you're coming back today. I didn't hear the rest. I had already spotted Leo's face in the crowd at the arrivals gate. He looked much more haggard. His suit was wrinkled as if it hadn't been ironed in a long time. His face was pale, and his eyes were dull. He wanted to drive me home. I got into the back seat and noticed he was instinctively driving towards our old address. I said flatly, "Don't go the wrong way." Leo was silent for a moment before asking, "Where are you living now?" I gave him the address. It was a small apartment I had bought before we got married. Not in the best location, but the deed was in my name only. It was a small home that was completely mine. Leo asked me, "Are you comfortable there?" Without a disgusting person around. Of course I was comfortable. It was such a stupid question that I didn't even bother to answer. We soon arrived at my building. I didn't even feel like being polite. I grabbed my bag and was about to get out, but after pulling the handle several times, the door wouldn't open. "What do you think you're doing?" I asked, trying to remain calm and resisting the urge to slam my bag into his face. "I'm not comfortable." The man's eyes were red, rimmed as he slowly turned to face me. "Clara, I'm not comfortable at all with a life without you." I watched his performance with utter boredom. "And so," he faltered, then continued, "Clara, come back. Isabella lied to me. They ruined my career, and they sent thugs to harass me every few days. I can't sleep at night. I feel like I'm about to have a nervous breakdown. Every night. I miss you. I realize now that you were the only one who would support me and help me, no matter what." I was silent for a long time, just as the air in the car was about to solidify. I finally spoke slowly. "In the past, when Isabella abandoned you, you came to me. You chased me for 3 years. And I finally said yes. Through all the ups and downs these past years. When you were poor, when you were at your lowest, I was the one who saw you through it. Then you became successful, and you still divorced me for her. Now, because of her, you've hit rock bottom again. And this is when you decide to ask me to get back together. Leo, do I look like a charity case to you?" Leo's expression was one of pure agony. "You don't have to put it so harshly," he said. "We didn't divorce because our love died. You're the only one in my heart. I never for a second imagined truly being apart from you. Why can't you give me another chance?" His words were so laughable that I actually laughed out loud. I smiled as I asked him, "When you were making out with Isabella at the class reunion, did it ever occur to you that this day would come?" Leo's head snapped up, his eyes wide with disbelief. "What?" I simply pulled out the video and shoved it in his face. "Leo, you cheated on me. Don't you dare talk to me about love now. You've got some nerve." Leo's face contorted in pain, and he gripped the steering wheel tightly. "It wasn't like that," he muttered. "It was Isabella. She made the first move. It was the same way back then. I could have had a good life, a happy marriage, a loving wife. It's all Isabella's fault. She kept provoking me, again and again. She ruined me. Clara. I never even loved her. I know. I cut him off, my face devoid of expression. You were just bitter. Leo seemed to breathe a sigh of relief and reached for my hand. But I continued. A selfish, greedy, and insatiable person like you is incapable of loving anyone. You waver at the slightest temptation, whether it was Isabella or me who stood by you at your lowest. You're just a pathetic creature who only loves himself, completely disloyal, always chasing a new thrill to soothe his own fragile ego. Leo, I'm actually quite grateful to Isabella. Thanks to her, I got to see your true colors early on. Divorcing you was the best decision I've ever made. My words cut him deeply. He stared at me in disbelief, his hands trembling slightly. How could you? He asked urgently. Clara, we were together for 7 whole years, with a bond that deep. How could you just let it go? It's precisely because it was 7 years. I spoke each word clearly. Don't make the ending any uglier than it has to be. When he was at his lowest, we were deeply in love. As he became more successful, he began to think that my love was indestructible. He took everything for granted, believing that no matter what he did to me, I would eventually forgive him, that he could never lose me. So he strayed. Faced with Isabella, he was reminded of his past humiliations and felt an urgent need to prove how different he was now, to satisfy his male pride. So he acted righteous while actually cheating, thinking he could win back his first love's respect, rekindle an old flame, and then placate me afterward, keeping his marriage intact and changing nothing. He wanted to have his cake and eat it too. So greedy. The world doesn't work that way. Leo, you once said something to me when you were pursuing me. Now, I'm returning it to you. You'll never know what you missed. Leo was devastated. That day, he apologized to me over and over again. After I went home, I looked down from my balcony. His car remained parked there until late into the night before finally driving away. I don't know how much of his apology was sincere, and I don't care. When I loved him, I gave it my all. When I stopped loving him, I walked away without hesitation. With every choice, I was true to myself. As for him, he would surely face his retribution. Leo was still young. Even if he had temporarily lost his job, he had the chance to start over. Unfortunately, he was so traumatized by Isabella's second betrayal and my departure that he became obsessed. I heard he started investigating Damien again. This time not for Isabella, but purely for revenge. Damien's family did indeed have a history of shady business practices, with countless victims who had been too afraid to speak up. Damien's family put pressure on him, and at one point, he was being chased and beaten by thugs. Financially, I had already taken a significant portion of his assets in the divorce. After losing his job, his situation worsened, and he soon had to sell his car and house, eventually becoming destitute. Isabella once begged him to stop his investigation, as it would affect her as well. Leo pretended to agree. That year, on Damien and Isabella's wedding anniversary, they hosted a grand party, inviting all sorts of high society figures. They had planned to play a promotional video for Damien's company at the party, but when the projector turned on, it displayed a video of Damien's wife, Isabella, kissing Leo in a stairwell. I heard the entire event descended into chaos. Damien nearly beat Isabella to death right there in public. The instigator, Leo, also faced retaliation. Someone was sent to break one of his hands, but even that didn't stop him. The following year, he finally managed to send Damien to prison. Tax evasion, illegal profiteering. All of his assets were frozen and confiscated. That day, he made a phone call to me. Unfortunately, I wasn't near the phone at the time. The person who answered for me was Ethan. I never would have imagined I'd end up with someone as young as Ethan. But the heart is a tender thing. He was sincere and passionate. He was a gentleman who respected my boundaries, taking his time to slowly win me over. He wasn't a smooth talker like Leo, but he proved his feelings through concrete actions. Us getting together was a natural progression. Ethan relayed the contents of the phone call to me. He said the man on the other end sounded ecstatic, excitedly asking if I would give him another chance now that he had made those people pay the price. Just like in the past, he sounded very disappointed when he heard my voice. Ethan said. I was going to tell him to call back later, but then it suddenly got very chaotic on his end. I later heard from other friends that Isabella had gone insane after losing all her money. She bought a fruit knife and stabbed Leo. Did he die? I asked curiously. I don't think so, my friend said. But he's in a miserable state. Damien's people broke his hand before he went to prison. He has no job, no money. I heard he was hospitalized after the stabbing. And there's no one by his side. Ethan listened to the call with me and asked softly, are you going to go see him? He was still young, with a boy's heart. I smiled and shook my head. Whatever happens to him has nothing to do with me. A broken mirror can't be mended, no matter what he did. It could never undo the pain he had caused me. Besides, I have someone more important in my life now. I won't lose my capacity to love because of one failed relationship, nor will I let it stop me from moving forward. I still have a long future ahead of me.